Hello, lovely people, and thank you so much for your channel. Okay, this was a little bit weird, but I wanted to get the energy going, get it started. I got my cool new mug here from this membership site that I'm a part of called CEO School. It's like a female membership site for female bosses and CEOs and founders to connect. So anyways, I got my coffee here. I wanted to actually start in this video and really talk about how I pick my stock investments, right? Like, how do I pick the next stock that I want to invest in? How do I even know what to do with the money that is on my investment account or my brokerage account, right? I should say. And like, how do I go about really choosing this? So this is really like a next step that I feel like gets a lot of people tripped up, especially when they're beginning to invest. And I should say, it's not like just that it gets a lot of beginning investors, quote unquote, tripped up, but it can be sometimes that when you're looking around and you have, for instance, because you are automatically putting money onto your investment account and then onto your brokerage account, that you are accumulating the money and now you have money to invest. And then you're looking around and you're looking for shares, you're quote unquote shopping for shares, smartly shopping for shares, and you cannot find a share or stock that you really want to invest in, right? You just like cannot find it. Nothing feels like a good deal to you from all of your research and all this kind of stuff. So oftentimes this can be actually also like a dilemma for more experienced or seasoned professionals, which is something that really I should say because no one really talks about it. I saw a lot of the YouTube videos when I did my research for this video, of course, to bring you guys the best information. You know, the YouTubers, like, they always kind of definitely talk about it, that, you know, it's kind of like fairly easy to kind of pick your shares or pick your investments. So I've been also reading, actually, let me grab it real quick, this book right here, Richer, Wiser, and Happier by William Green. And essentially it's really interesting because he's interviewing a few kind of like billionaires, quote unquote, that became billionaires through their investment strategies in this book. And he talks about it. Essentially, it's like really in-depth personal interviews. It's really interesting to see how, you know, you really can struggle at any kind of level, so to speak, to quote unquote find also a stock investment that might be right for you at that time right now. However, I do feel like it gets a lot of beginning investors, and oftentimes it got me too in the beginning. In the early years when I started stock investing, it got me tripped up because then you kind of like end up thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't know maybe what I'm doing, or just like, maybe I just don't understand all of this. Why can I not find something? All this kind of stuff, right? However, if you're doing your research, and I'm going to get to this in just a second because I have this video actually structured in 3 parts, so listen to it. And of course, stay until the end so you're getting the juiciest bits and pieces, because we actually are going to buy a stock today. So if you have never seen it before, actually how easy the process is, the technical process online nowadays, because you don't have to like hop on a call, right, with a broker or something like that. I'm gonna like use this as broker right now. Then it's just very easy, right? It's a few clicks from a button. And if you watched some of my edit videos before, you know I'm using E-Trade as a brokerage platform. Essentially, you're doing the transaction, you're doing the deal for me of like buying and selling my stocks. So this is going to be the juicy bit towards the end, so stay until the end if you want to see that, and also which stock I'm going to buy today. A few shares from, of course, already decided. But so let's get further in this interview. So again, one of the top billionaires actually out there, he, for instance, didn't buy a stock at all. I'm gonna like probably record a video and give you guys an in-depth on this book because it has been fantastic so far. I'm almost through with it. But like sometimes you just wait for a few years, and that actually also shows you that because you can wait, because you can be patient, because you're not going with trends or market like rumors or whatever out there, it shows that you are actually a good investor, right? So just so you know, keep that in mind. Here's another thing that I'm gonna get to in a second, because I do want to discuss stocks and ETFs out there. I know that the common consensus seems to be from a lot of like fellow finance YouTubers. I don't know if I would consider myself a finance YouTuber because I do have a little bit more of a broad content, as you guys know. However, I am a finance nerd, right? And so it's really interesting for me to see that the common consensus is definitely to advise to buy index funds or ETFs, which essentially, if you don't know what an index fund is that if you think about it, instead of buying a share of Apple or a share maybe of Amazon, which is like really expensive right now. So at the time of this video, let me just check real quick to give you the most accurate pricing. There's the camera, the most accurate pricing ever. So for instance, if you consider Amazon right now, yeah, right, one share is $3,341.87. And I got my laptop right now, so you know actually where I'm looking at. And so for a lot of people, you know, who just want to get started with, let's say, $100 or maybe $500, obviously a month, that's not really a stock you maybe want to consider buying. So of course, an index fund, for instance, could be the S&P 500, right, or the Vanguard index funds. Tony Robbins talks about it in his book like money a lot, that is indeed, of course, a good investment. So if you want to go ahead and, for instance, we're looking at the Vanguard index fund. So essentially, like when you're investing and you're buying one share of an index fund, so $406.47, that's the Vanguard S&P 500, right? So some people just say S&P 500, some people say Vanguard index fund. Doesn't really matter. So the point is, if you're actually like investing in this company, then you're gonna hold essentially a tiny bit of a share of Amazon, right? So with the over the $3,000, right, that we said before, you would have held one share of Amazon clean cut out. But if you're investing in an index fund, then you're holding a tiny bit percentage, even less of like Amazon, but you're also holding a percentage of a share, of a fraction of a share in like Apple, in Facebook, Berkshire Hathaway, in Tesla, JP Morgan Chase, and so on. So they're essentially like the biggest top 500 companies in the US right now you can invest in when you're buying an index fund. Now, granted, of course, this is quote unquote a safer investment than it would be to buy an individual share. However, I do want to argue, but like also from my research just and from kind of watching and kind of analyzing other sort of like billionaire investors, right? And what they're doing is, yes, of course, they're creating oftentimes funds themselves. However, I don't think that they themselves would invest in a fund, and it doesn't sound like that. Most of the time is because I've also worked, to give you a background story. So I've worked for essentially a venture capital firm in LA when I was still in college, right? So that was one of the gigs that I got, one of the jobs that I got. It was really awesome, and I learned a lot about the startup scene and, you know, essentially like the venture capital world and all this kind of stuff. And what I learned, what shocked me back then is that I remember is that they usually willy-nilly, oftentimes, of course not willy-nilly per se, but they totally know that 80% of the investments that they invest in will not guarantee them to give them a return on their investment. However, it's about 10 to at most, if they're really good venture capital investment firm, so 10 to 20% of their investments will give them a lot of the return, right? 10x the return of what they invest in, and it will make up for the rest of the 80%. So essentially the Pareto principle is interesting because it works for this as well, right? And so the same is true for investing. All of those index funds, it doesn't really matter which one you look at. If you look at it analytically over the years, over the last few years and that kind of stuff, it's only a few companies in their holdings that actually will guarantee them the return, right? Sort of like to make them or to offer them sort of like a gain of the return of their investments, right? A lot of the companies in those index funds are pretty much, pardon my French, but they really are. And so I think one of the things, maybe call me, and I know I have to keep my ego in check, but call me a little bit too proud. But I do want to invest also kind of my hard-earned created like money into companies that I personally can get behind at and that I personally believe in. So for me, I know this goes a little bit against the grain. And yes, I do have some index fund investments in some index funds. However, by and large, I do like to invest in stocks individually, right? Also, when you're investing in stock individually, as a side note, you do get lucky. Obviously, I got lucky with Tesla. I said that before because I did invest already like 8 years ago. So amazing, of course, returns. Like right now it's I think over 1,000% returns, and I'm gonna check the exact numbers in a second again. But by and large, like my returns on my stock portfolio, and I'm working towards becoming just such a good investor that I can get up to even 30%, which is the top of the top investors. However, right, most of the time my returns fluctuate between 12 and 15%, which is still pretty good considering if you're looking at most of the index funds and what their return is at, right? So I just feel like for me personally, if I'm already get behind investing, if I get behind stock investing myself, if I learn all this stuff, I do want to kind of control and also be invested in emotionally, spiritually, whatever you want to call it, the stocks or the shares of a company that I choose that I want to be invested in, and not that sort of like a fund puts it together. Even though of course there's also people much smarter than me working at that fund. If you don't have the time, or if you don't necessarily have the passion, right, and you don't want to learn that much around stock investing, but you want to learn the basics to really kind of like really get behind it, I get your money working for you, because it's like kind of just dying in the savings account, let's be honest. So then of course I think that's a great option for you. So just like some thoughts regarding this, because I know some YouTubers have some other thoughts around that. I'd love to hear your, of course, opinions. Like leave me in a comment if you're already familiar with both and kind of what you're leaning towards. If you're kind of leaning towards investing individually in stocks, or if you're leaning towards investing in index funds by and large. Let me know in the comments down below. If you're liking the content, of course, so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and of course, like, show us some likes, because it really helps because it really helps this channel out to be seen by fellow people who are like-minded and where that content could help them as well. So just so you know, it only takes a few seconds. Okay, so the video further on is structured in 3 parts, right? The first part that I want to show you guys is my Excel spreadsheet. I said in another video that I'm not an Excel spreadsheet or spreadsheet kind of gal. This is still true. However, one spreadsheet I do keep, it's very easy, and I'll show you guys why. Because I just want to keep track of all of the amazing ideas sometimes I'm getting about potential industries or companies I want to invest in, because most of the time you'll find it interesting when you're getting inspiration, and I don't want to miss out on that. The second step of the video is I'm gonna show you guys how I kind of go about evaluating the shares that I'm planning on investing in. And just so you know, I do stick to what I said so far in the past as well. I'm not going to give you any very complicated analysis because there's quantitative, fundamental analysis, whatever not. So I'm not going to share with you all of the in-depth analysis you could be doing. So essentially, I want to get you guys started really on investing, right? So I'm going to share with you on how I got started also at the very beginning, and kind of like just that you're brave enough and just start having your money work for you, and kind of the basic information you just need to know about to really kind of make a more informed decision. With that being said, of course, I'm not a financial analyst, so you do want to a financial planner. You have to really make the decision yourself. So just to say this at this portion of this video, please, this is only sort of what they call for financial entertainment, which I hope is entertaining for you if you're nerding out over finance like me as well. Okay, and as the third step, of course, in this video, as I structured it out as well, is I'm gonna actually buy the stock and show you which stock we're gonna buy. So I hope it's exciting for you guys. So let's get started. I'm gonna take you guys over onto my computer and show you guys essentially my Zoom. And show you guys my Excel spreadsheet on my Zoom video recording app.
Okay, you guys, so here we are. This is my Excel spreadsheet. It's very basic. It's inside my Google Drive investment folder, or I say wealth management folder, I call it. So when you're looking for here, essentially what I do is, it's very easy, and I just started it a couple months ago. Essentially a track system of potential industries and companies, as well as maybe things that are going on, rumors that I hear in the news or in social media about the economy, global developments, that kind of stuff. And so essentially it's just a tracking system for me to kind of fall back on when I have sort of accumulated a certain amount of budget from my automated transfers to my brokerage account, when I'm ready to kind of buy my next stocks, right? Because I buy usually stocks like every few months. So here we go. So some of the stuff, as you can see from the industries or sectors, I think I'm interested in, and I'm thinking about it, just so you know, for the next 10, 20 years at least. If not, I'm trying to imagine, which is of course really hard to do because none of us are fortune tellers, but for the next 50 years, right? So I'm trying to think of this long term. I think I'm by and large definitely a value investor, meaning that I'm not doing day trading. That's something that I definitely personally never advise, because I feel like there's just so much you could lose potentially, and that's not just my thing. But when it comes to kind of like value investing or stock investing with a value approach, for me it's important that I essentially preserve my wealth. So preserving my money, preserving my wealth, this is my main goal, right? With of course risk involved as well. However, we have different risk tolerances, right? So for instance, if you are a person, you have, for instance, already mortgage, you have still student loan, you might have 4 kids, that kind of stuff, your risk tolerance level is of course very different to maybe someone in their 20s who has none of those things for some reason, right? And they can go ahead and just really have maybe more savings, or they can invest it like riskier, that kind of stuff. So when it comes to those kind of sectors or industries of the economy that you want to invest in, keep that in mind as well. Then we all have personal kind of like interests, which I think are really crucial when it comes to investing as well. For me personally, and I said this before, I cannot get behind a company where just, no matter how great they are, right, and how amazing they are, if I think their product is just not good, if it maybe is unhealthy or does harm or whatever it might be, and the company by and large as well, for me personally, I don't want to invest in that. So that's just some stuff that I kind of always think about it as well when I do my research. So some industries that I find interesting as of lately as well, as you can tell, are cybersecurity, urban development, or urban planning, we should say, because things are changing. We've seen from the coronavirus phase how people are moving around the globe. Cybersecurity, oh, I said that already. Plant-based essentially food and plant-based protein instead of like, of course, protein from meats, because plant-based, for me personally, from all the research I've seen or read, is going to be a big contributor, where most of the civilization or the globe's moving towards a more predominantly plant-based diet, this is going to help definitely with global climate, this kind of stuff, right? So it's going to be stuff that is even imminent for many of us in many countries. Cancer research, big thing nowadays, right? Fintech, because I think the old currency system or money in general is not going to work anymore. Augmented virtual reality is a big one, electric cars, esports, and then I have dividend stocks. Dividend stocks are more traditional. However, I like the fact that dividend stocks helps you really in building up a passive income in a way, because you are contributing essentially like when you're investing in a company and they're having really great year and the profit gains look really great, then they are going to be dispersing some of that profit back to its investors and believers in the company in the form of some percentage. So it can be anything between like 2%, 7%. Usually it's not much higher than that. I wrote like some of the biggest ones down, even though I know already I'm not like probably going to invest in like company, unfortunately, like that is Coca-Cola. I know Warren Buffett invests in it. I know he might know something that I don't. I get it. But again, I think it's really important to understand you, your personality, and also the energy you're bringing behind your investments. Because for me, I just don't think Coca-Cola is a great product because it's so unsafe, especially as a mom, or not unsafe, I should say, but it's really not good for you in plain English. And so that's why I just can't invest in it. No matter that they pay out really good dividends and have been so, I think it's one of the companies with the longest running dividend payouts ever. But so just some stuff you should know. If you don't care about the stuff, or if you care about other values, you need to know your values and just invest basically according to that. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to give you kind of some inspiration and to get a conversation going. And, maybe in the comments, because it is interesting. I really love the stuff. As you can tell, I'm nerding out over you. I'm nerding out over this with you. That's what I mean. But I'm nerding out over you guys as well. So thank you so much for watching, of course. And then I got like some company options. And then what I do is usually like what I decided, I'm going to put websites or where I read about it or in the news. Most of the time when I write down here, I either heard it from some of my other friends who are into investing, or I even saw it on social media, which is a really great, I think, form of information nowadays. However, one thing that I do stick by or try to adhere to is this old investment rule, is that you want to buy the rumor, but you want to sell the news. Meaning that if a company, for instance, GameStop or something like that, if it made it in the mainstream media news or in social media news and you see it everywhere, it's too late. You've kind of missed the bus, right? If it's still a whisper or a rumor, then you are at the right time. You might be at the right time investing in it. So just something to really kind of think of as well. So like I said, this is my spreadsheet. Let me know maybe some industries or sectors you find interesting in and want to just add maybe, or give me some form of inspiration as well that could be potentially interesting to invest in. And of course, like I said, social media, Reddit, even investment sites like the Motley Fool are really great resources to get some ideas for potential stocks or company shares, which are of course stocks that you can invest in. Now let's go to the step 2 of the video. The next thing that I do is that I am checking out, of course, I go to Yahoo Finance. There's a different kind of other tools, but essentially what I want to be doing there mainly is that I want to be looking at the financial sheets of a company. Now, again, I'm not a financial expert. I'm still learning a bunch of stuff myself when it comes to analyzing financial sheets or balance sheets, I should say, of a company. However, there's some stuff that is quite interesting. And so I wanted to show you guys. Let me get to it. By the way, I'm reading this awesome book right now. I'm going to show you right here because otherwise you won't see it. And I pulled it up as well. It's How Finance Works. This book, you guys, I can 100% recommend. I'm going through it the second time because I find it so interesting. It helps, I think, any person that wants to invest, or even, just since I'm a business owner as well, but I didn't study accounting, that kind of stuff. You really want to kind of like get the basic knowledge of that. And this book is really awesome. So that's why I pulled it up, and I have it as well, of course, but I wanted to share it with you guys so you can see it and jot it down. But I also put it, of course, in the description down below. So let's research, for instance, Enbridge, you guys. Enbridge is something that, yes, I have decided on very possibly buying with you guys today. A couple of shares, so it's at $39.56. It's a Canadian company. However, let me give you the breakdown right here so you can call it and I give you the right information. Enbridge is, of course, a natural gas distribution company. It has an expansive pipeline system, which is the longest in North America. It has over 5,000 kilometers of pipeline in Canada and the United States, which essentially transports crude oil and natural gas. So just some of the stuff that we in our society already need and will probably need as well going forward, what you can do with finance or Yahoo Finance, why it's so great. But like I said, you can use Google, whatever you want. I just like to use Yahoo Finance. So you can check here, you type in a name, you see the current stock price, and then you have everything that's on the news, right? That it's going to pull you from the online space. The company outlook is interesting, conversations that are happening, statistics, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, you got financials. So if you click on the financials, which is really interesting, you see there essentially the income statement, and you can really check it out. It's like public knowledge, which I find is really cool. You can really see some things of how much gross profit they made, some of the stuff, how much expenses they had, which is important. Of course, you have to think about what kind of company this is in terms of like the numbers that they're gonna put on the balance sheet, right? If it's a company that's a grocery store chain like Whole Foods Market, it's going to look so much different as a company, for instance, who's also maybe like a SaaS company. So just all that stuff to watch out for. And I wanted to give you guys actually 5 things that I usually like where I take my time and really evaluate them. So usually it does take me about, I want to say 20 to 30 minutes to kind of decide on the stock, since I'm not investing. But yes, even when you're investing millions, you would take probably even longer. It's just we are humans, let's be honest. But if you're buying one share of $39.52, maybe you don't want to spend a whole day fretting about it. You just want to make the decision, because honestly, it's probably going to take you a lot less time to maybe buy a pair of jeans, right? So it shouldn't take you that long to kind of decide on a stock, in my opinion, especially if you're going to go ahead, you're careful, you're just buying one share, for instance, at the beginning or that kind of stuff. You see? So just to put things into perspective, because I think most people are really so worried or scared about it, but then it's so easy for them to go shopping for other stuff. And, it's not that much maybe different. It really isn't, because you're just buying percentages or shares into a company. Okay, first of all, the first thing is I want to understand kind of the industry, the future that's happening in the industry, and kind of like what they're doing, right? What's their product? Second, the leadership is important. Who's the company CEO? Is he in the news? Is he not in the news? What values does he stand by? For instance, Elon Musk, right? So something to think about, because nowadays with social media, a leader of a company can either maybe make or break a company oftentimes and really change the price of a stock. Another thing is, of course, you want to think about it, which billionaires say all the time, you want to buy cheap, right? You want to, it's like the same when you go for clothes shopping, right? Most of us have, and I'm using the example of jeans again, but most of us have a very good idea of how much jeans cost. We've probably have been around for a while and bought jeans for a while, right? So you know which jeans are maybe more like a luxury brand or a mid-tier brand, or which ones are cheap, maybe from Ross or something like that, right? So these are just something to think about. So sometimes you just want to get a really good deal, right? And when you're getting really good deal, the chances are that you're going to make money with the stock, with the share in the next few years. It's so much more likable than when you're totally overpaying for a pair of jeans that's maybe not a brand name or something like that, right? But okay, that's a different argument, how much we want to pay for jeans. But I think you got my point. And the next thing is cash flow. I think cash flow nowadays is so important in keeping a company or any kind of business alive or afloat. So if they have absolutely negative cash flow, I'm usually very worried or scared of kind of investing in that kind of company. And then the final thing is, of course, my gut, my instinct. It's hard, like investing is definitely like more like a psychological thing than anything else. It's not so much like a mathematical thing. And so your gut is very important too. So let's go ahead and buy one of these stocks, so I can show you guys from Enbridge how I'll go ahead and buy the stock. And of course, I hope I really walked you through a very easy way, step-by-step kind of like version in how you can pick your next stock. Let me know definitely what you decided on, what stock you buy next, and if this video was helpful to you. And let's move on to the final portion and buy one of these Enbridge stocks. Okay, you guys, now are you ready to buy some stocks with me? I'm in my brokerage account on E-Trade where I get my stocks. Looks like it's a great day to buy, as most of the stocks seem to be going on sale, so I'm really excited about it. So of course today, as you've seen so far, I'm leaning towards buying Enbridge, right? And so I'm not gonna like explain the stock again to you guys. I'm just kind of like buying it so you guys can kind of like check it out, how it works. Essentially, I wanted to show you guys with this quick step in this week's video is that you really do not have to be afraid, because it is something that's very simple. I think once you do it like a couple of times, most people have such a barrier almost or a mental block almost in their mind, about like how it really works to buying stocks, because it seems to be something that's so almost arbitrary at times, right? And not something that you can touch. So it is sometimes easy, like really hard to imagine like how you do it. So I hope if you've never bought stocks before, that this video is really inspiring to you and that you're really just gonna go ahead and do it, because it's that that simple. It's almost like when you're ordering, again, our example from this week's video, jeans or something like that online. You're just shopping for the name. There's just no pretty pictures. If you want to get pictures of the company, you can always Google it, but it essentially works the same. So I have it hooked up, of course, to my brokerage account. You can see right now, if I'm going to my accounts one more time, you can see, for instance, that this is the available cash purchasing power that I have. So this is essentially what I can invest. Is also my wins from some of the stocks and like some of the stuff, the automated deposits that are going onto the brokerage account from my revenue account. For instance, Enbridge is great because they have such a high dividend yield, as you can tell. Otherwise, I think it's a good time to buy. The stock obviously price is like really high, but I don't think we're gonna get anytime soon again to what it was like last year during the height of coronavirus. I would say, as like the whole stock market plummeted shortly after, so that would have been a super sale to buy. But anyways, I'm just gonna go ahead and buy 2 quantities of the stock for now. So just very, 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 as you can tell, conservative, good for the day, no commission. This is the price for the stock. So you click on preview order, and then you can see here, this is the company that I'm investing in. This is the money that will be, taken out. And this is the account where I'm essentially like buying the stocks or for, right? Then I place the order, and then my brokerage account E-Trade is going to put this onto, the market, and will get this order fulfilled during the market hours, right? Since I'm based out of Europe, sometimes it's kind of like I have to wait for the order to be fulfilled. And then you do get a notification, or I get an email also every time, of course, that, I'm buying a stock and everything went through successfully. So essentially, this is all there is to it. Not much more to it. Aren't you surprised? So it's very, very easy. And so I would just really recommend you go ahead and not be scared of it. And you can do conservatively, really, you can invest in it. Oftentimes, sometimes when you see the red numbers at the beginning, I mean, when I started 7 years ago, I was like sometimes like, oh my gosh, freaked out or whatever. But like the more you kind of like see it, the more you're getting used to it, because that's just kind of how the market goes. It goes up and down all the time. And so that's just something that you kind of get used to. And oftentimes I actually look forward to it when I see it going red, because I know that probably indicates a better time to buy as the stock prices are sinking. So let me know if you have any questions, as always, in the comments.
Now, of course, I have the big question is, how do you feel? How do you feel after all of this information, right? Let me know in the comments as well. I hope that you found this video actually to not be so overwhelmingly complicated or confusing. I hope you find it interesting and straight to the point. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts, considering some of the stuff, of course, I said at the beginning about ETFs, but also kind of like about some of the sectors that you saw maybe in my Excel spreadsheet. Maybe you find some industries really interesting. Maybe there's other emerging industries that I haven't even thought of. Please drop a comment down below. I would love to kind of like see it and kind of get the conversation, or keep the conversation going with the community. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.